I'm David Liggett with datacenterHawk, and I am with John Gould, Chief Commercial Officer with CyrusOne. John, thanks for joining us, or thank you for letting us join you.
Thanks for having me.
We're in Allen, Texas, in CyrusOne's newest Dallas data center. This is obviously a market that CyrusOne has been in for a long time and continues to grow in. But it's been an incredible several years for CyrusOne and the growth that's taken place. And when I think about CyrusOne, I think about things like speed to market, scalability, large facilities, large campuses. Tell us about why that's so important to your customers today. And you've been right in the middle of that growth, and you've seen it all.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been over 2.5 years now. It's incredible. No, thanks for having
you
us,
bet.
David. I think what really actually attracted me personally to CyrusOne was the scale of its growth early on in our growth. I think what we learned early on in this market, which is a relatively young market,
Sure.
as you know, was scale really matters. Scale matters to both the providers in terms of driving out costs, supply chain, efficiency, but also scale matters to our clients. This is a total economies of scale game. So it's something that we did very quickly. We coined it the massively modular approach.
Yep.
And we really did what a lot of great supply chain operations companies do in their business, which we standardized early. And I think that really differentiated us early in the market. Every one of our data centers looks and feels and operates the same way. The benefit we have of not having as aging a data center footprint, which is difficult to kind of retro
Transform,
everything to the same area. So it's really paid off.
When you think about the Fortune 1000 companies, and obviously there's numbers of those that are your clients.
Sure.
What are some of the trends that you're seeing these users need when they're focused on their data center IT infrastructure? So obviously you all have clients that are technology companies, healthcare companies, cloud operators.
Right.
It's a wide variety.
Sure.
So how have you seen those trends change, and what are you seeing today as it relates to their needs?
Yeah, listen, it's a great question, and it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
I think the benefit we have at CyrusOne is we have focused really early in our life cycle 18 years ago on the Fortune 1000. So to your point, we do have a nice distributed mix of financial service companies, energy, oil and gas companies, healthcare, technology, cloud. So we're seeing it across the continuum. I think enterprise organizations, if I segment that group first, they're all challenged. And they've been challenged over the last decade. A decade ago, it was all about the virtualization craze and compute. Right?
Yeah.
How do you optimize your infrastructure, get the most bang for your buck, and fully utilize the infrastructure you invested in? Today, it's even more complex and more disruptive. The organizations are fast digitizing their environment, are quickly differentiating in their competitive space. And those that aren't adopting new technology and modernized infrastructure quickly are losing pace fast. So I think that the obvious trends we see, as everyone's well aware, is over the last half a dozen years or so, every enterprise organization is in a fast path to their journey to the cloud. Everyone's at a different point, however, in terms of where they are in their journey. And a lot of it's based upon whatever their legacy infrastructure was. So a CIO today is really in a difficult, challenging space because now they have to very quickly assess, and it usually starts at the workload and application level, which workloads make most sense, whether it's from a technical capability in terms of refactoring the applications and making them ready for the cloud, or whether it's more of a compliance, risk, security, critical IP that they're uncomfortable putting in the public domain. So once they come up with a big picture strategy in terms of how they're going to modernize their infrastructure, then they can make the decision around where they're going to house it. Some of it will be, and I'm sure we'll talk about multi-cloud options, but some of it's going to be, how do I modernize and the data center where my private workloads need to reside, and that's where CyrusOne comes in.
And so how have you seen companies do that well? I think I always say, like, I have sympathy for the IT infrastructure users today, just because there's so many changes that are taking place. Sure. A lot of it does depend on your legacy applications, where they're housed, what real estate assets they're in. So, in your experience with the different companies you all have seen adopt CyrusOne, but also other, service providers, how have you seen companies approach that well, where they actually get a great end result that not only serves their needs today, but allows them to grow in the future the way they need to?
I'll say those that work intelligently fast.
Okay, yeah.
What I mean by that is you can move very quickly into the cloud. Frankly, you can almost move anything to the cloud. But if it's not optimized to take advantage of all the microservices in the cloud, it's not really an efficient workload. So I think you have to have a very effective strategy. You have to take a real holistic approach. And don't rush into the cloud, but you can't go too slowly either competitively. So I think those that have a healthy balance, that realize it's not a zero-sum game. It's not an all-or-nothing thing. Rationally and realistically, unless you're a startup, which can live in the cloud day one, you're probably going to have a reasonable mix that says 60% of my workloads is our desired end state that I want to put in the cloud in various providers, and maybe 40-odd% will stay in some form of a private environment. I think those that are very smart in how they not only take on the technical challenges, but they slow down and realize what organizational change has to occur in order to support that new environment.
That's good.
That's critical.
And I think, and for the people that are watching, in the last 3 years, we've seen incredible growth in areas like in physical areas like Northern Virginia, Chicago, Silicon Valley, Dallas, Phoenix. All markets that CyrusOne is in. But tell the people that are watching why the growth in those markets continues to take place. Obviously, CyrusOne has taken a big stake in all those areas and is going to continue to. But why do you think those markets are receiving the amount of enterprise companies that are enterprise users that are putting their deployments there, or large cloud operators looking in those markets and thinking that those markets are where they need to be? Why is that happening today?
Sure. No, it's a great question. I think from the origin, it starts with cost of power. It starts with different tax incentives and abatements. It gets into fiber connectivity and kind of those hot ecosystems where it's very connected. And then it goes back to the idea we talked about on the scale factor. Once you get a level of scale, and both hyperscale cloud providers start putting up strong, large footprints, enterprise organizations want to be near those cloud providers, you end up with this incredible inertia and momentum where everything is going to route to those major hubs around the United States. And to your point, that's why CyrusOne has built such a presence in those markets.
And you've also built a presence internationally. If you look at CyrusOne over the last several years, you've been focused on figuring out ways to grow in international markets. What is it about getting outside of the U.S. and getting into areas like Europe and other international markets that's so important right now for CyrusOne and the customers that you serve?
Sure. Now, another great question. Listen, I think it was very clear to us, again, some of our roots and origin has been very much sitting in the Fortune 1000 sector and focus. Some early comments we heard over the last, frankly, 5 or 6 years was there really is a lack of consistent kind of global experience for enterprise customers, which really catered well to CyrusOne's vision and strategy. As we tend to standardize, like we spoke about before, we want the exact same experience whether you're sitting in our Phoenix data center, Dallas, Chicago, Northern Virginia, or to your point, Frankfurt, London, Dublin, Amsterdam. But one of the biggest challenges there frankly are not a lot of major global players that have a consistent platform. So there's a unique opportunity not just for CyrusOne, but a unique opportunity for our clients because they actually are asking for this level of consistency. and we want to serve that.
Yeah, and I think the next several years, and I obviously think growth will continue here in the U.S., but I'm really excited, and we're paying close attention to what will happen in Europe, and the growth that will take place there. And a lot of that growth is around some of the new technologies that we're seeing mature. Things like 5G, AI, autonomous cars, and those type of technologies. How are you seeing your clients today, or the customers today? I would say take the futuristic approach and look at what's going to happen down the road, and apply that to their IT infrastructure. Because I think one of the challenges, a huge challenge, and we talked about it earlier, but for the IT user is, I have to do something today for my needs today that's going to serve me tomorrow, and I don't know what tomorrow is going to be.
Future proofing is very difficult, especially with such a rapidly changing environment. I think it all goes back to scale. And ironically, just in the previous question around Europe, there's almost a diseconomies of scale. When you think about data sovereignty laws, GDPR, companies, one of their challenges were, I need to serve my stakeholders in Europe, let's say, but I can't land a massive data center in London to serve, especially with Brexit risk, all of Europe. So I'm never going to get enough scale in my one environment. I'd rather leverage a CyrusOne where many customers can take advantage of the scale market to market. To your question around those unique workloads in AI and IoT, analytics, look, the world is changing rapidly. Artificial intelligence, machine learning is going to drive it already is, incredible amounts of data. And as you and I both know, data doesn't get deleted. So it just expands and compounds upon each other. What's amazing, however, is as we start seeing what these new workloads can do in terms of end client experience, it's starting to drive incredible amounts of horsepower of compute, incredible amounts of, obviously, heat in terms of density, which is going to drive innovation around cooling and data center infrastructure. So back to your question on future-proofing, clients want to make sure that they're taking advantage of a third-party provider that specializes in just this use case so that they can stay ahead of that tidal wave of change and take advantage of their providers that can help them scale.
And are you seeing, you mentioned like densities, are you seeing enterprise users specifically? Because I think some of the more sophisticated data center IT infrastructure users probably are able to densify environments maybe a little bit more effectively than enterprise users. But are you seeing the enterprise user base start to come around with, layering higher densities in their environments?
They are, and I know a lot of the future state desire is to be more dense. It's obviously more efficient. I think it's very vertical specific. So I think certain industries are more bleeding edge than you'd think. Clearly the cloud providers are there, but truthfully, a lot of the oil and gas and energy providers are incredibly dense today with supercompute. When you think about seismology and seismic data, these are petabytes of data. So the processing and the time to discovery is a critical differentiation. So they've been leading that edge early in there. Similarly, in financial services, when you think about fintech and some of the high frequency traders, these are in Bitcoin. These are very, very highly dense, unique workloads, and they have been leading the charge.
And I think these, a number of the industries you just mentioned, we've seen compliance change in importance as it relates to those industries. Obviously, we're with, the way the security of data and how important that is today, not just from a personal standpoint, but also from a business standpoint. How have you seen that change in, the data center user's mindset? You talked about financial companies, you talked about healthcare companies. How have you seen that change?
Well, listen, I think it's just become a lot more top of mind. And I think in some respects you could argue it's just a table stake at this point. Now it's expected, almost a qualifier that you can support HIPAA compliance, you can have a level of just SOC compliance and the ability to audit financial compliances to meet their obligations and requirements. Look, I think security is top of mind for everyone, which again I think drives, as companies are big picture evaluating their broad modernization strategy, it's really important for them to factor the workloads that I'm going to put in the public cloud I'm going to rely on those public cloud providers to provide that level of kind of risk mitigation and security. But maybe I want to take advantage of the likes of a CyrusOne who is compliant, where they can take advantage and hold us accountable for that level of security.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I want to talk about your background just for a second.
Sure.
You know, because you know, as I mentioned, you have been one of the key leaders in the growth and development that's taken place in CyrusOne over the last several years. But prior to that, you were with some companies and had some just really rich experience from a sales perspective and growing the organizations that you're with, Stratasys, Reach Local, Dell. Talk about your past experience and how that has really set you up to be successful in helping CyrusOne reach the level of excellence where you all are today.
Gotcha. Well, first and foremost, CyrusOne has been incredibly successful well before my time.
Sure.
But I'm really happy to be part of that growth. I think, listen, I was very fortunate. I've been in the IT industry for over 25 years. Nearly 15 of those years was with Dell, clearly a leader in its space. I had the opportunity back in early 2000 to be a founding member of a division called Dell Host, which was a web hosting venture early in our days. And what was pretty exciting is at the time, as a hardware company, it was viewed as another strategic distribution model. You can buy hardware, you can lease, or you can host it. But in truth, what we realized pretty early on was this was a whole new paradigm. This is where clients were starting to figure out, do I really need to spend the CapEx to buy all this infrastructure and manage it, or can I just push that over as an operating expense? So getting early indicators to how this industry was evolving before the 2001, 2003 kind of implosion, it got the brain thinking, right?
You bet.
And then at the tail end of the career at Dell, I had an opportunity to run a global IT consulting division, both here in the Americas, and then was asked to go run that in EMEA in Europe. And what that kind of gave me was just a much more broad global aperture and kind of lens about how to transform business, not just domestically, but get that level of adoption internationally for a level of consistency. And then subsequent to Dell, spent about 5 years as president and chief revenue officer for 2 other public companies. I guess holistically, what it's provided me is just a different perspective. Not just in what enterprise IT organizations are going through, because our biggest practice, frankly, in that IT consulting division was data center modernization. Virtualization, consolidation, cloud readiness at the application level. So it provided me incredible context. But just the maturation of how mid-sized companies need to start driving a level of discipline and rigor in the operations of the business pretty much connected it for me. And I hope to be able to take some of that here to CyrusOne.
So I talk about this often, but you know, just that the industry is still young, you know, and if you think about just when CyrusOne or other publicly traded data center operators, you know, it wasn't that long ago that IPOs were filed, and you know, 5, 10, 12, 15 years ago. So I think we're still in a younger phase of this business, but just talk about, you know, how you view that, you know, being in the industry, as you mentioned, for 25 years, your past background, seeing where companies are today, and then just maybe what excites you about the future of the industry we're in.
Well, listen, any industry that is highly dynamic and moving quickly is very interesting.
You bet.
It's intellectually stimulating. I think what's exciting about this sector is it seems to be this incredible inflection point of change in a really short amount of time. So to your point, it's been less than 20 years that a lot of this has been progressing, and frankly, the last 5 to 10 that's been really exciting. Whenever there's dramatic change and competitive differentiation, it invokes a spirit of excitement and energy. What excites me about that is that I think we can truly help clients solve really difficult dynamic challenges where we don't have all the answers. But we can be a key element in their supply chain to help them scale and grow and compete. What I see as personally exciting, again, more from the operations side, to your point about being a relatively nascent young industry, is there's huge opportunity, back to my point about a global consistency, to get a level of operational excellence and scale that this industry really hasn't seen in the past.
Yeah.
It's been a fast growth market where people are putting up incredible data centers and operating them and going to the next one. Well, what I love about CyrusOne is, although we're structured like a real estate investment trust, we run our business like a technology company. And what I mean by that is the client is central in everything we do.
Yeah.
So we really put a lot of focus and a lot of pride around client experience, around layering and burdening the cost of our business to ensure we have a level of global consistent client experience, which I think is really differentiated in this little young space.
Yeah. Well, John, thank you for talking with us today, and just again sitting in one of y'all's world-class facilities in Allen. It's going to be fun to watch the next few years, not just here in the U.S. but Europe and other markets, and to see what you all do. So really excited for CyrusOne, and thanks for the time today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Great to see you.
Thank you.